Why do you think that social media platforms and businesses are such a big threat for the establishment, especially platforms like TikTok, which is more for the younger generation? They are a big threat because the establishment cannot stand the idea that the Gen Z or the younger generation wants to make money out of their talent, out of their creativity and their inspiration. Who do you think that you are that you no longer want to work for big corporations and multinationals as your parents did? To have a 9-to-5 job with a monthly wage that will probably not change for at least 1 or 2 years after starting a job, unless you start climbing the corporate ladder. And with all the monthly bills and still having to clear your college debt, you will probably work for nothing. And during that time, you will accomplish nothing in life. You won't be able to buy a house. What am I even talking about? You will probably won't be able to even buy a flat or to afford to rent a flat. That is why they want you to embrace the tiny house movement. You will live paycheck to paycheck. And while the world is being preoccupied with climate change, overpopulation, LGBTQ, and with raising awareness in a virtue signaling way about these alleged social-political problems, Gen Z and the rest of the society is facing a serious existential crisis.
I want to know how the hell people in Canada are even living. I generally consider myself a positive person. I'm resourceful. I have options. I'm luckier than a lot of other people, but how the hell is anyone existing in Canada? I feel trapped. I just got a good job. I started in September, but even with that job, it pays less than 40 grand a year. And it's a job that requires education, and even on that job, I still can't do shit. I can't buy anything. I can't afford the rent these days. I'm just feeling so much despair. How is everyone else, and are you okay? Because the answer is probably no. I feel like I can't stay here, but I can't move anywhere else, because anywhere else I move to, the landlords are just going to charge me $2,500 a month in rent. Unless I move into the middle of literally nowhere where there are 0 jobs, and I'm just feeling really overwhelmed.
A lot of people actually leaving the UK.
If we pay our taxes, they should come back to benefit us in some way, shape or form.
UK might be losing its competitive edge. A lot of people have left to Portugal, to Spain, where it's nice and sunny, better than in the UK, and flats are cheaper over there too.
Can it get worse? I hope not.
Overall inflation stubbornly high.
Cost of living crisis.
The cost of living in the UK is rising, and it's changing people's lives.
The UK has fallen into its largest recession on record.
The average rent in London reached £2,500 per month. That's about $3,150.
I went to the grocery store the other day, bought a little bit of shit. A little bit of groceries. It was $100 and something for fucking food, dude. What do we do without food? We die. It's affordable housing, affordable healthcare, affordable lifestyles is just a pipe dream in this fucking country. And we boast to the rest of the world how we're the best country in the world. How?
That when a country refuses to provide the basic needs for their citizens, meaning adequate food, housing, and health care, they are torturing their citizens. And if someone's being tortured, what are they going to do? They're going to try to fight their way out, or they're going to lay down, and this country is putting people in survival.
So who do you think that you are that you no longer want that in life? Who do you think that you are for not wanting to chase the carrot as your ancestors did? That you don't want to follow the footsteps of your parents? There was this social model in the past, which is still somewhat present by the way, that they were like smaller corporations which had their own employees. So those people that were a little bit more courageous in the past managed to have their own businesses. Interestingly, in 2020, with the appearance of the pandemic, that changed because loads of millennials that had their businesses needed to give up on them as a result of the lockdowns and economic uncertainty. So small businesses really suffered in that process, and that was purposefully orchestrated in order for big corporations to take over. We all know that. However, now that things are changing and there is a new post-pandemic working model that was born, there's a brand new opportunity for the young generation to make money on TikTok. for example. So with that, things started to go out of control, and they cannot let that happen. The establishment cannot let that happen. So the official narrative about China spying on the US, being the reason behind the US and certain states in the US banning TikTok, is just untrue. Their problem is that they are losing control of people because, again, who do you think that you are, that you don't want to work for these big corporations? They know very well that people are fed up with that, and the old good model is not working. People need flexibility. People want to work from home. They want flexibility around their private life, around their families, their children. The old ways of threatening people and intimidating them with losing their jobs if they don't obey to certain rules in certain companies is just not working. Most people would rather leave their jobs than leaving and giving up on their freedoms. So they are aware of that. Remember the Great Resignation starting in 2021?
Some are calling it the big resignation. I spoke to entrepreneur Chad Carden about it, and he says there has been a shift in power and individuals now have the power to decide.
Organizations pre-COVID, I think, had the upper hand where, it was a paycheck, it was security, it was benefits. And I think, organizations got exposed where they potentially weren't paying as much attention to how do we engage our employees? How do we create fulfillment with our employees?
Nearly 4.5 million people have quit their jobs as of May 2022.
Obviously, now they can blame the acceleration of automation and AI taking over jobs on labor shortage and aging population. But that's another story. So the establishment started a domino effect with COVID, but they got the flip side of their intimidation and fear-mongering. And that was that people got the taste of freedom and flexibility. And because governments are aware of that, now they are planning to offer you a universal basic income so you can stay at home. You won't even need to work for corporations if you don't want to, but instead you will be living from the wage that you will be receiving every month. And obviously, you will be paid that in the future in the form of digital money. And that will be extremely tempting for many people. And not only for the younger generation, who won't have to do anything to survive in life, but also for the older generation. It will be very, very tempting because they don't want to lose you. They know very well that if you understand your power, and if you understand that you are actually a creative individual, a creative creature, and that you can create and make money from your passion, then they will lose you. The establishment is threatened by your power.
Poverty is not a lack of character. Poverty is a lack of cash. The big question is, of course, what can be done? Basic income guarantee. It's a monthly grant, enough to pay for your basic needs: food, shelter, education. And it didn't take long before I stumbled upon the story of a town that had done it, had actually eradicated poverty.
So you think that there's a real problem with something like a universal basic income? You think it's a horrible idea?
Well, I think the idea that the solution is a basic income is not a good idea, because I think the problem is deeper than that. I don't think the fundamental problem is that people don't have enough money. I think the fundamental problem is that human beings in some sense are beasts of burden, and if they're not provided with a place where they can accept social responsibility, social and individual responsibility in an honorable manner, they degenerate and die. That's the opiate crisis in the West right now. Like, men who are men don't need money. They need function.
So I personally believe that not living from that universal basic income will be the new cool and the new act of freedom in the future. Having your own business, either on social media or outside of it, will be the new cool. So I would not advise anyone to accept that income, because not only your monthly allowance will be limited, but you as an individual will be limited as well. Just think about it. When you're having your own business, you and your income can become unlimited. But obviously they are playing on people's fears, and they are counting on people's insecurities, because hard times are coming. And to make hard times even harder, they need to pull out a few wild cards like inflation, food shortages, climate change, wars, or even a new pandemic. So there are multiple domino effects that were started before 2020 And by the time that the tidal wave hits, we will be absolutely terrified of our survival and what the future brings. So many people will give up on their ability to create money. To create money the hard way, because making money outside of the government's aid will not be easy, especially if we think about Pluto entering Aquarius. It won't be easy with the censorship on social media and on the internet, and with the overly digitized AI-ruled platforms that will detect keywords and will absolutely block you if they don't like what you are saying. So it won't be easy to make it through those platforms. Censorship rules are getting more and more severe, more and more strict, and apparently Google is already rolling out a new censorship scheme in partnership with the World Economic Forum and United Nations that aims to stop all free speech and quote-unquote misinformation everywhere in the world. And that means that it will block and it won't show alternative platforms and independent media news in the search results. So that is already around the corner, and it will be extremely important for you to listen to your intuition and to believe in yourself and to work on your insecurities in the future, to make money out of your creativity, your passion, your intuition. They know that many people are capable of doing that, but that's terrifying for them. So your biggest commodity will be your intuition, not necessarily your intellect as it was in the past. It will be your intellect combined with your intuition. The brain-heart coherence, left brain in coherence with the right brain. The integration of these two will be your biggest commodity, and you will have to act upon your inspiration, not to act upon schedules, but your inspiration whenever you feel inspired. So there's a reprogramming that needs to happen in terms of how we are making money. And the old ways of the masculine push and these hustle communities, hustle culture, will not be sustainable. They are no longer working because they burn people out and they make people miserable. And there's this idea in these hustle communities, and especially among Gen Z, that you can only make money when you are working hard 16 hours a day, sacrificing your social life. There's this toxic idea that you have to give up on things that are precious and pleasant for you in order to be successful. This is what they want you to believe, that this is the recipe for success, because these billionaires like Elon Musk, like Jeff Bezos, or whatever social media successful people are doing is the way. That's not the way. That's not sustainable. Do not fall for that.
Feel that hustle culture needs to die. Goodbye. I am no longer subscribing. The only thing hustle culture is going to give you is an ulcer and probably high blood pressure. Okay? That's what hustle culture is. It's ridiculous. I feel like as soon as people start to realize that there is more to life than just working in North America, is the sooner that people understand that we weren't meant to really work this way. Our bodies weren't designed for this. Our bodies are designed to live, love, be.
I think when it comes to work-life balance, something that really causes me anxiety is this whole idea of the hustle culture. Because I go onto social media, I see people post on TikTok, here's my day. 5 a.m, coffee. 6 a.m, running. 7 a.m, have a bowl of salad. Walao! I'm not gonna wait by 7 a.m.
Exactly.
It causes me stress. Like, am I supposed to be doing that?
No, you have to remember, honey, that's the one day that they did that.
Exactly.
That's what I tell TikTok. That's for content.
Oh my God.
As a society, we have to act upon our inspiration. When you feel like you're having an inspiring idea, take your phone and record it. Or take a piece of paper and write it down. That is what is being in the flow of creation that cannot happen around strict busy schedules. That is what we need to focus on, because the old ways, as I said, of pushing will not be sustainable. Those are very extreme masculine energies and very unintegrated masculine energies. That extreme focus on your achievement to a degree of tunnel vision is not sustainable. That is why I say it over and over again, that listening to your emotions is key. Those are your compass. Your emotions tell you when you are in the flow and when you are in resistance. And the most successful people are perfectly listening to that. They are using their emotions as their compass, because their emotions are showing them when is the right time to act upon an inspiration. Because when you are acting upon your inspiration, you are 100 times more productive than when you are working around schedules. We are living in a society that is built upon schedules. You are being taught that everything is purely about action, not passion. It is very hard, especially for women or a person with dominant feminine energies, to navigate in a world built upon schedules. But the thing is that the materialistic orientation of our society is not built upon healthy masculine energies. It is built upon unhealthy, imbalanced masculine energies. The truth is that we have never seen men in power, neither women in power. We have never seen powerful individuals as leaders.
Trauma creates coping mechanisms. Now, one of the ways that we cope when children are traumatized, one of the ways they cope with it is to soothe themselves, and then that's where addictions come in. But another way to cope would be is if you get the message that you're not good enough, then you might spend the rest of your life trying to prove that you are. And how do you do that? By being very nice to everybody. By working too hard to prove that you're worthwhile. That's why I was a workaholic doctor, because I got the message as an infant. I got the message that the world didn't want me, I wasn't good enough. Well, then you spend the rest of your life compensating by taking on too much, and you're stressing yourself.
So if we want to be successful or to even survive as a collective, as humankind, then we need to integrate feminine energies into our society. Because with this overly materialistic orientation which we operate from, we will destroy ourselves and we will destroy the planet. And what we are seeing now is the attempt to eliminate feminine energies. They even want to eliminate the feminine womb. They are trying to tell you that we don't need women on the planet because babies can be created in a lab.
Babies are being grown like plants in a lab. Ectolife claims to be the world's first artificial womb facility, capable of growing 30,000 lab-grown babies a year, like a scene straight out of the Matrix.
But when you remove the feminine energy from the planet, you destroy the planet. With the absence of feminine and masculine polarities, no planet can survive or thrive. No human being, animal, or organic creature can survive if they don't develop in a feminine womb. Understand now what wokeism and gender politics is about? The only thing that they want to achieve with their virtue signaling is you being resentful with the other gender. And for that, they have to create a gender war so you become extremely upset with the opposite sex. So at some point, you will even give up on wanting to recreate. They are attacking masculine energies as well, calling them toxic masculinity, while they are degrading femininity. So I'm not surprised that the majority of Gen Z doesn't want to have children. Therefore, population decline will be a thing in the near future, unfortunately. So we are not battling with overpopulation, as per the propaganda, but we are battling with underpopulation. So how do we navigate these crazy uncertain times? Because it does feel like we are paddling upstream and we have to swim against the current. It does feel like we have to be in constant resistance with the flow of life. And if we are not experiencing inner resistance, then we are experiencing outer resistance, which essentially is the same thing. But how do we navigate through these energies? Well, we do that by embracing our organic humanness and by embracing our creative powers. We have to understand that we are not the victims of this society. We are not living in a simulation where there's an AI that is pulling the strings. Absolutely not. This is what they want you to believe, that you are living in a simulation and you have no control over your life whatsoever, neither do you have control over your incarnation. Would they love you to live in their simulation, which they created for you? Oh yes, absolutely. They would love to rule over you and have total control over your choices. But that is not the case because you have free will and you can develop awareness. So even if you are living in a simulation, it is your own simulation which you created for yourself. But that is more like the esoteric side of things, which I don't want to get into now. But going back to empowerment, we have to understand that the change is in our hands. It is not in the hands of a group of people that would love to enslave humankind. They can enslave you if you allow them to, and if you choose to hand over your free will to them. You can choose to opt into their reality by accepting their absurd rules. And they convince you to do that in a ritualistic way. Those that perform the ritual with them will belong to them. You can accept their rules when you are operating from fear and you are looking at yourself as a limited and flawed human being. If you are looking at your humanness and your emotions as flaws, then they have you. I'm gonna tell you that they do have you, and you are absolutely living in their simulation. When you think so poorly of yourself as a destructive creature, which they want you to do, they had you. But if you look at yourself as divinity, as a part of the infinite intelligence, as a fractal of source energy, and if you are seeing the sacredness of your humanness, then you will understand that your free will is the biggest strength that you have. You will understand that it is the biggest power that you have in your hands. You will understand that you can create whatever you want, obviously within the limits of this third-dimensional physical reality, because there are certain rules that you have signed up for when you came here, and certain rules that you agreed upon. However, that doesn't make you less sacred or less divine. And I'm hearing a lot in spiritual communities, people saying that they are fed up with this third dimension, that they are fed up with their incarnation and their human bodies. We are looking down on our humanness and our role in this reality. We are seeing it as a flaw, as a mistake, an error to be here, where we have to start to see the beauty in being here. The beauty in the ability to master the alchemical process that this reality is teaching us about. This is our role here, to work with energy, to turn fear into love, not by denying fear, not by belittling fear, but by seeing the value in it, seeing the purpose of it. And this way, through this alchemical process, we transform fear into love. And by transforming fear into love, we transform the world. This is how you are contributing to the changing of the society. So this is what I'm here to tell you today, to remember who you are, that you are not a slave in the matrix who is unable to escape. And those that are telling you that you are living on a prison planet are absolutely wrong. When you are saying that you are living on a prison planet, you are fueling your own imprisonment. You are fueling your own slavery. If you see yourself living in a prison, then you are most likely living there. If you see yourself as a free being, which yes, is operating within the limits of the physical reality, but within those limits, it is also able to master the blueprint of creation, then you are a free being. Our generational and collective trauma is making us to think and believe that we are prisoners. And those that want to enslave us and rip us from our human rights are also the prisoners of their own mind and their own trauma. We have to deal with trauma, the root cause of our resistance and separation first, and we will be able to set ourselves free. Only then we will be able to operate from unity and cooperation rather than competition and survival. And we have to remember that we might not be able to control how the entire system works, but we can definitely choose our part in it.